J.K. Rowling did an interview with Megan Phelps Roper, and can you guess what she had the audacity to say? People who thought that she was transphobic, they were mistaken. This author, I think somebody pointed this out.
Right now, why is the focus on fucking how bad J.K. Rowling has it? This billionaire, fucking beloved internationally superstar. It's like, hey, by the way, literally trans people are being killed on the streets. Why are we talking about J.K. Rowling and how bad she's having it, or how bad her experiences is? You know, it's because.
And you know what's disgusting? I tweeted about that today. The fact that, like, what is it? Over 800 contributing authors to the New York Times signed a letter, like, calling them out about their, like, anti-trans editorial bias. And today, these motherfuckers put out a piece, like, in defense of J.K. Rowling.
It's just a slap in the face. Like, they know what they're doing. It's sickening. And I've got to also point out, somebody said Megan Phelps Roper in the chat, which is hilarious, by the way. But she is the individual who's interviewing J.K. Rowling for that particular podcast that I referenced. And this is somebody who came from the Westboro Baptist Church.
Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, it's called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. And so she claims that she left the Westboro Baptist Church. She left religious extremism. And this is supposed to be like an objective, unbiased interview. The problem is that the name, The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, like, I get the wizard and witch pun, but still, it paints her as a victim. And on top of that, what was I going to say? Fuck, I lost my train of thought. But anyways...
I can add to that it's absolutely disgusting when you think about what you were trying to remember, that also the BBC came out and issued an apology to J.K. Rowling, where they're like, we deeply apologize for ever, not standing up for, the princess during these difficult times. And it's like, motherfuckers, do you not realize that no one is saying that, like, they're attacking J.K. Rowling for no reason? It's like you are using your platform to spread massive amounts of transphobia, and it has a real world effect. It's like you are a fucking institution, You're one of the biggest fucking franchises in the world, in the history of humanity. This shit means something.
Right. Like, they act as though, right? Like, here's the thing. There's a difference between, like, inaction and action, right? Everybody is not out here. Most people, think about this, right? Most people in the world are not anywhere espousing anything. They're not, they're not taking up causes. They don't have something that they are known for, they advocate for, let alone most people. She is a fucking children's book author.
Mm-hmm.
She's a children's book author. She is a children's book author. You know her for nothing fucking else than being a children's book author. She has no qualifications of any other kind, and that she's a writer. That's what we know her for. But she has taken it upon herself to the thing she chooses. She fucking chooses. She volunteers to thrust herself as, I'm going to be figure as speaking anti against this community. It does not matter how you fucking slice and dice this. What she is anti-trans, and she's made it at a point to be a thing. It's not like a one comment. It's not like you say something one time, people shit on you about it, you double down. Well, this is my
crusade.
And then you leave it alone. It's a crusade. This is an active thing. Like, I don't say, when people decide, people say, oh, she's a prominent Rikers activist. You know why? Because I fucking talk about Rikers nonstop. That's how that happens. You can't say. So if you constantly speak anti-trans, yes, that's what you are now known for, and you are not the victim there. And this idea, they do it intentionally because, again, it's a politics of distraction. If we focus on this, and we make it about, let's make it about this white woman, and then that's something, speech, and you should be able, because what they're trying to do is, like, affirm and legitimize bigotry. Like, hey, that feeling in you that makes you want to say, fuck these people, I don't want to make that extra efforts or whatever. Let's give you a way to make that palatable. Let's slap this woman you like. Let's make it about, how she's being threatened, she's being this. But at the end of the day, bro, she has a choice. There's nothing that is making her. She is not some victim. She's not something. If you choose to speak, that's what you deal with. You deal with a world of response. You deal with that. People are going to call you everything but a child of God. How is it that you, as a billionaire children's book author, decide to thrust yourself into a conversation, a discourse, an advocacy, a movement that has nothing to do with you? And now you are the victim. It is disgusting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say that the interview is being published on the Free Press, which is Barry Weiss's outlet, who also did TERF Apologia as well. Right. So that gets rid of this idea that this is some unbiased interview. It's going to be, the softball piece for J.K. Rowling. And as if she's the victim and trans people have victimized her. They've lobbed death threats at her, and they've called her these names. And isn't it terrible? She's just asking these questions. It's like the disingenuity is terrible, because if you're going to be that much of a bigot and tweet from your castle about trans people every fucking minute of the day, at least own it. Say it with your full chest. Own your fucking bigotry. Don't be a coward. That's what I hate.
Just own it. That's like, that is the thing. And let me tell you something. That's I say this all the time. That's the one thing I appreciate about Bahamian people. When Bahamian people are terrible, boy, are they just terrible. They'll admit, like, oh, we hate this thing, we this. They just step into, yes, bigotry is in the majority, and we feeling it. So, like, but this idea, only in America is it like the fight always around people who truly just, they want you to affirm the bigotry and call it something else. That's what it is. It's like, how do I beat you over the head? How do I manipulate you? How do I gaslight you? How do I force you to say that me being a bigot isn't bigotry, even though I am? Just be that.
Not only is it not bigotry, it's heroic to actually speak out against it. Like, they want to be the heroes of the story. It's so fucking disgusting. Like, I don't understand this. How can anybody, like, I've never understood the obsession with people living their lives the way they want to live it. Like, it's so, trans people just want to exist. Like, how does that offend you so much? How does that impact your life at all? It's so weird and bizarre and terrible.
That's the part of it, though. Like, this doesn't concern you. When you got a Matt Walsh or J.K. Rowling, they're going after these people. That's not your people. You don't have trans kids. You don't know trans people. Like, all of a sudden, it's just like you are trying to control and manipulate other groups. That's the fucked up thing about it.
Dang. I saw somebody today, a troll I blocked, immediately commented on, because I told you I tweeted that about the New York Times, and they commented, they were like, they responded to a trans person in my comments. The trans person was like, I'm not, subscribed to the New York Times anymore because I'm not going to support a publication that, supports people who want me dead, right? So here comes some transphobic bigot responds like, no one wants you dead. They just don't want to live in their delusions with you. Let's ignore the former even for a moment and say this. You can't, if you're not dealing with it, is literally you forcing yourself onto people, because at the end of the day, if someone's identity, someone is making determinations for you on how they want to be dealt with, right? You don't have to fucking deal with them. If you have a problem with trans people, you don't want trans people in your life. That's not a part of your life. You literally don't ever have to deal with it. You don't even have to be burdened with that. That's not a part of life. You are taking an affirmative step to make this your fucking business. If they wanted you to, it's not them trying to get you to live in their delusion. They're not fucking talking to you. According to you, you don't know for no fucking trans people. You're not in community with trans people. No, you are going out of your way to try to find ways to be in their business, to make them the topic of conversation. I've never in my fucking life, if you were truly disinterested, you would leave them a fuck alone. I can't think of anybody, any group that I am not interested in, that I'm like, let me talk about them. What they thinking about? Let me devote my energy.
And you have to draw legislation to control them. You have to be able to control their sex lives. You have to be controlled, like, every aspect. Their medical treatments. Do you want to control and be in the room with the doctor and the parents and the kids? It's like, it doesn't concern you. These are strangers and their children. Why are you trying to step in there and be like, you shouldn't be allowed to have healthcare or medicine? And it's like, well, is that because you have a deep concern about this, or because you don't understand it? Well, I just think it's weird and scary to me. So I don't think you should have healthcare, child.
They're projecting their own fears. It's just, it's a fear of them not understanding things. And they make that their entire personality. It's so, the whole thing is so, I still have trouble understanding it.
You don't even need to understand it. At the end of the day, most people, listen, in real life, most people barely give a fuck about the people in their life they're supposed to give a fuck about. Okay? They barely give enough of an important fuck about themselves. You do not need to understand it. How many people in your life you don't understand what the fuck they're doing? Why is it all of a sudden, when it comes to gender identity, sexual orientation, all of a sudden now you feel like you need to have an understanding of what else anybody else is doing? All kind of people walking around with all kind of religions, doing all kind of shit, doing all kind of hobbies. You never feel like you need to understand it. None of you decide you need to have a PhD in religious studies or cultural identities or any of these other things. You don't need to understand it. You simply need to either, you have two choices: respect people when you deal with them, or leave them the fuck alone. Just two choices. You don't need to be educated in nothing simply to respect people. That's how it works. This idea, that inherently, the idea that you feel like other people owe you an explanation, and they have to convince you, they have to beat you over the head to get you to afford them the same level of rights or civility as everybody else, is something steeped in white privilege, white entitlement, racism. That's what that is. Because why do you feel like every other group needs your fucking approval? Why does everybody need to give you a fucking free PhD course and beat it over your head and give you an A you didn't earn for you to decide to be fucking decent? I don't understand half the shit white people doing, but I don't say shit about it. Okay, you don't tell me I'm not in your business. I'm not asking why you're going to do it.
It's right though. Like, it's just about human decency. It's just about being kind. Like, just be a person. That's it. Just be a person.